You're watching Cheche live on Citizen TV. We're talking about corruption today with our guest, the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, Mumo Matemo. And we've talked a lot about what you're doing, what you're not doing. Unfortunately, the view of the panelists and most of our viewers is that you're not doing much, and if you are doing anything, you're not moving fast enough. And so before the break, we were talking about resourcing, and you have been fairly open in saying that you're under-resourced, both in terms of human and material capacity. So when it comes to your budget, what does that look like? Where do you find that you're spending the most?
We have to spend almost equally between investigation and prevention. Let me give you just one example. We had a report about 3 weeks ago about a principal in a school who was demanding payment before he releases a check to a supplier. And he said that if you don't give me the 20,000, your check can take 6 months. If you give it to me, it can take a week. It took us 4 days just to catch that person, deploying, because first he said, send it through M-Pesa, but don't use your phone. Then our contact said, but how do I convince anybody to use? So that day it didn't work. The following day he said, go and deposit it in such and such a shop with so and so. We said, but the money will be lost. It took 4 days. You can imagine. We had, fortunately, this was about 100 kilometers from Nairobi, but you have to have officers there on a daily basis. So it tells you to have a successful intervention on the enforcement side, it costs quite a bit of money. But it's more beneficial to the country to put a lot of resources on prevention, on awareness, on education. So it also involves quite a bit of traveling, quite a bit of preparation.
How much is the budget last year allocated to? I mean, you've been there less than a year yourself, so you know we must cut you some benefit of the doubt in some of the issues, because you're just getting into office. How much was your budget? How much do you think is required?
It was 1.2 billion. We had asked for close to 3 billion, but Treasury told us, look, this is the basket. What can I do? Yes. We can only give you this. So we said then we have a challenge, which is playing itself here, of managing the expectation of Kenyans against the resources that we have. Right now we are having the discussion so that we can have a much better budget next year. And we are telling the Treasury, look, we have work to do in the counties, and let us not pinch pennies.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How much of it is going to, just as you explained earlier on prevention, and you said the other one was investigations. Yes. How much is going to staff?
About a third of that is going to prevention. About another quarter or something is going to investigation, and then we have to also pay the staff. We have to do capital development. We are in a rented premises. That place is still rented. We would have ideally wanted to be in a premises which has a better, which is government. But the Treasury told us, look, it's not possible for now for us to resource you for that.
Okay, very quickly. Okay,
how independent are you in the sense that do you expect, or do you get calls from people high level or low level telling you what not to? Like somebody says, I was told
to go slowly.
Go slow on this. Like Gedongo was told, go slow on this.
Let me tell you that direct a call from somebody who you would call high-placed, I have not received. You, of course, find...
If nothing happens in the fight against corruption, we will not blame anybody. We will blame Mumo Matemo, because your hands are free. You have been set on the animal to kill.
You will blame two things. First, I agree, you will blame Matemo. That is the first. We must agree.
Right.
But number two, you will also look at how have we been resourced? Capacity.
Okay.
You will need to look at those two.
We'll come to your legacy in a minute, but very quickly, just because we're running out of time and there's plenty of feedback from our viewers. Kindly let the head of corruption know that he needs excellent strategic planners. He can get them from all professions. He needs them in the ground in all counties. What he is displaying is nothing but excuses. That came from Bishop in Ghana, in Nairobi. Moses Kachaliba, in Kachaliba rather, Mr. Chair, some Ministry of Education officials were suspended in 2009 on alleged corrupt practices, and up to date they're still on suspension, whereas their files are in your office. 5 years on, suspension is really a violation of their human rights. So again, the question of speed. What's your response to that?
Our response to that is, again, yes, the question of speed vis-a-vis the resources that we have. But we have undertaken an exercise of segregating the files and looking at those files that ought to be fast-tracked, because so we have a strategy of looking at the aging of files, because we must handle current business and we must also handle what has been.
So what's on your
with us.
priority list for fast-tracking?
What's in my priority list for fast-tracking are, for example, cases of people who they are not charged, they are suspended, they are still earning some money from the government. We are looking at those ones, and we have
so would this case of the teachers be fast-tracked?
Yes, that is something we will fast-track.
Okay.
Yes.
This from Mareta and Meru. A lot of corruption was reported in most of the counties. The culprits are still in office. Is this the way to fight corruption, as the same people are continuing with corruption?
Quick answer, like I said, counties are less than a year old in office. After elections, they went into setting up structures. By the time they started operating was in the month of May, June. So by the time we got the reports, and like I said, you must put quality in investigation. But let me tell that gentleman in Meru that, like I said, very soon he will see the files, some of the files are quite advanced, and I can see where he's coming from without saying more.
Extent,
yeah.
Just one more, because there's a lot of your feedback. Rono in Matunda, nepotism. Corruption is glaring you in the face. For example, in one of the counties in the North Rift, a governor has recruited his relative to the crucial post of supplies officer, and his offices are being built by a company closely related to him. Do you need glasses?
We don't need glasses. I can borrow Mutege's, but let me say this. These are matters which constitute things that we are looking at. Because, one, you might also have a relative who applies for a job, and they qualify, and they are taken through the process, subject to the limitations that are there within policies and within the law. It is not an offense if somebody does not benefit from your being there, because we shouldn't also say that as long as you are in citizen, the moment any of your people work here, that's a problem. But have they been properly hired? That's number one. Number two, are they observing the rules in terms of the balance?
Okay.
I think that's what
There's a question here now regarding your own personal integrity, because of course you had a court case challenging your suitability for this post that you hold. A man in court for alleged graft, taking others to court for the same reason. I don't buy it. Until Matemo himself is sent home, I don't think he can do the same with other corrupt persons. Were you cleared?
I also want to tell him this, and reasonably, that in Kenya, we should respect the judicial process. If a decision is made through the judiciary, we should respect it.
Okay. Let's answer that question clearly. You were taken to court by a group of NGOs who challenged your suitability over some tax concerns relating to your work as within the KRA. The High Court found that you were unsuitable. You appealed, and on appeal you were found to be suitable. So that's where that stands.
Yeah,
but the matter is in the Supreme Court, isn't it?
It is in the Supreme Court.
Still actually current in the Supreme Court.
It is in the Supreme Court. So
the Court
of
Appeal. So let us let the judicial process proceed, because the matter is sub judice.
Okay.
But my message is this: surely, let us respect the judicial process.
But there are those who would argue that if you respected the judicial process, you would resign and allow the courts
if you remember,
to...
if you do recall, and I am sorry to have to say this, that all sorts of reasons have been raised about suitability in office, including the simple wearing of something
earring,
somewhere on your body. I mean, we were testing the Constitution, which I like. We were testing a new document. So I do not mind that. If you remember, I was one of the first people to be hired under the new process. And Kenyans were testing the process, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Talking about the preventive function of anti-corruption, it took somebody to write a petition to Parliament regarding what's going on at KRA. Your spotlight could not see that there was a problem in KRA's recruitment processes, and therefore, how is it on the other institutions? Are you following up?
I think it is also important, David, to realize that we have other commissions which focus on that, and whose mandate is much more focused on that. Okay, and you
have a smaller role, though, in respect of that, don't you?
We have a smaller role, it is true.
Yeah.
But there are also other commissions, and Parliament also has a role to play. So it is addressed by an institution, and if we are called in, we will make our contribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go to the current, if you don't mind, Woodwork. The regulations you have published.
Yes.
Don't open accounts outside. You are tying our legs. If you are in public or you're a state officer now, you cannot have a foreign account. What is the motivation or justification?
I know, David, you wanted to be a state officer.
I'm hoping one of these days
some while ago, and you will
be a state officer. I don't want to be tied.
And no,
yes.
What we are saying is this. We are not saying you shall not open the account. I think let's correct that.
Yes.
We are saying you want to open the account, make that disclosure, make an application.